Their second week of strikes, Elmira Correctional Officers are still standing strong outside, even though they received a message Sunday night stating if they do not show up for work on Monday, they will be fired. 12 News' Aaron Lawler has more from the picket lines.
Correctional officers at the Elmira Correctional Facility are going into day 14 of their strike, applying pressure on the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision for a better work environment.
Took this job for a career, not to have a life sentence in a prison.
Sunday night, COs received a message stating if they did not return to work Monday, they would be fired.
You know, we're just trying to ask for help and make significant change in the facility, not just for us, but for the incarcerated individuals in the jail too. And we're just getting threatened.
Those threats, no more health care, no more jobs, and the final straw, arresting those still participating in what Docs calls illegal strikes.
None of these actions we take lightly. We have tried at every turn to get people back to work without taking these actions.
Correction officers have a difficult job, let alone being understaffed. I see firsthand the impact it's had on correction officers and their families, and I want to make sure that we continue to have this conversation as they play a vital role in public safety to this state.
Corrections officers on scene tell 12 News without the community, their voices wouldn't have been amplified, and they are grateful for the support.
This strike, I believe, the whole state just became a family.
Letter sent by Docs also stated after 10 days, if there is no explanation for a staff member's absence on the 11th day, it will be deemed as a resignation. According to a CO at the strike, 5 Elmira COs have been fired as of March 2nd. Aaron Lawler, 12 News, Chemung County.